So we were learning this Gemara, and then we ended off with a question. So we're on page 31a, and the Gemara that we were learning had to do with the idea of, just like when it comes to davening, that a person should not daven in the midst of sadness or in the midst of laughter, but instead, the person should daven with a feeling of simcha shel mitzvah. And what we explained it to mean consolation of Torah, words of Torah, and we explained that this is one of the sources to recite the chapter Ashrei before Mincha, and we recite verses of redemption before Shacharis and before Ma'ariv, and then some have a custom at the Ma'ariv service, the night service, to add other verses that also have consolation, like the verse that Hashem doesn't forsake the Jewish people. And so these are type of words that these type of verses that a person should enter the davening with. And it's called Simcha Shel Mitzvah, words of joy of mitzvah, which is basically words of Torah that are consoling. And the same thing applies when a person is separating from their friend. Let me try this again. When a person is saying goodbye to their friend, they should also end with a word of halacha or word of Torah. And here it gives an example from the prophets that the way they ended their books, with words of praise and consolation. And then it gave examples of people. It brought a statement of Mare, the grandson of Rav Huna, the son of Rabbi Yirmiyah bar Abba, that also the same idea that you should, if you end your meeting with a word of, when you say goodbye to someone, you end it with a word of halacha, so he will remember you, zeichrehu, he will remember. And then the Gemara mentioned this story of Rav Kahana, who he escorted Rav Shibi Barashi into a place of Beit Tzanisa in Bavel. Beit Tzanisa, Tzanisa means palm trees. So he escorted him to this place that there was a lot of palm trees. So then when he got there, Rav Kahana asked Rav Shimi Barashi, now I wanted to look up if this is his Rebbe. I forgot to look it up. Rav Kahana, thank you, Isaac, for this wonderful book. This is there's a few Rav Kahanas. Oh boy. There's a Rav Kahana 1 and a Rav Kahana 2 and a Rav Kahana 3. And a Rav Kahana 4. So there's 4 Rav Kahanas. And I'm just wondering if Rav Shimi Barashi was his Rebbe. And I guess we've got 4 options here that it's possible. Okay, I don't see it right here, but we'll have to. I'll have to look it up. I'm going to leave this book open. I don't want to take up your time. But in any event, Rav Kahana was escorting Rav Shimi Barashi, and he asked him, "Is it true the statement that that it says in a verse in Jeremiah that a land that no one passed through and a land that no one ever lived?" And so he says, "What does that mean? If no one ever passed through, for sure no one ever lived there. What do you need it to say both?" So he says it means that any land that Adam Harishon decreed this place is going to be a settlement, that got settled, and any place that did not get settled. So he wanted to know. Let me repeat this. He wanted to know if it's true that these palm trees are all from the time of the creation. And he answered him, no, they're not from the time of creation, but they were decreed upon at the time of creation, that Adam Harishon had decreed that these palm trees this will be a settlement, be some type of settlement here. So that was the Gemara that we learned. And on that Gemara, we wanted to do some homework because that Gemara seemed a little surprising. What does that mean? That Adam Harishon decreed what places are going to be settled and what places wouldn't. So I mentioned that maybe it's similar to the fact that Adam Harisha named the animals and the birds. It says that he named the animals and the birds. So maybe similar to that, he was given this mission to decide what land is going to be established as a settlement and what wouldn't. So I found three things on that, three commentaries on that. One is from the Brochos Rabbah. One is from the Medrash on Brochos. And that Medrash says that let me just see what it mentions that the Nachash, the snake, was speaking to Chava. So the Medrash asks, where was Adam when the snake was speaking to Chava? Again, the snake spoke to Eve and said, "I want did God tell you are you not allowed to eat from any of the trees?" And started a conversation with Eve. Now, where was Adam at that time? What was he doing? So it says that Hashem took Adam around the entire world, and he said, here is a place that should be planted. This will be a place of zera, of where it will be. This will be a place of plants, of trees. This will be a place of plants, and this is what it means: a land that no one passed through, and man that Adam did not dwell there. Meaning that Adam did not decide if that place is going to be a place of or a place where settlement will take place. And so that is according to this Medrash, the story of Adam deciding what place will be a place of growth, that was done before the sin. It was in the midst while they were talking, but it was done before the sin of eating from the tree of knowledge. And it was while Eve was talking to the snake, that's when Adam was busy. God took him around the world. Now, from the Medrash, it sounds like God told Adam which place will be
production.
It sounds from the Medrash a little that it's Hashem telling Adam which place will be a place of settlement. But our Gemara implies that our Gemara says pretty clearly that Adam had to was the one to decree that it'll be settled. So why did we need Adam to do this? Again, it's not so clear, but this is the statement from the Medrash. It tells us when it happened. Now, there is a Sefer Hasidim that gives us a little more Kabbalistic idea, and that is that Adam was very big. His body, when he was created, it was from the end of the world till the end of the world. There's a Talmudic statement that supports this. And when the angels wanted to say before Adam, Kadosh, you are holy, because he filled the whole earth. So God decided to shorten him. And he took from his limbs and he made Adam much smaller. So what did God do with those extra limbs? All that flesh that was, so to speak, removed from Adam's huge body. So Adam told Hashem, why are you stealing from my body? So it says, so Hashem told him, I will return it to you, fill the world, and it'll be filled like it was originally, meaning that through your children, you will fill the world. In other words, initially I made you the size of the world, and now I lessened you, I minimized you, but your extra flesh is going to be that I removed. When you have children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren and so on, it will fill the world. And that's what it says King David, the son of David, meaning Mashiach, will only come when all the souls have been born, because God is going to fulfill his promise to Adam that he's going to fill the world like it was. And Hashem said, throw these pieces around the whole world, and wherever you throw it, that will be a place. Your children will end up dwelling there. This place will be a place of dwelling of your children. And wherever you decree for your children to be, for the Jewish people, that's where they will be. And for the Goyim, that's where they will be. So somehow, from this Sefer Hasidim, chapter 1245, it says this like Kabbalistic concept of how Adam was so big, and then God shortened him, and he took that extra flesh and threw it to the place, threw it around, and that was the wherever you throw it, it'll return to earth the way it was, and that place will be dwelled and settled from your children. Could you take oh.
Rabbi.
Yeah, just 1 second. We got some noise here. Just 1 second. I'm just waiting a second. Okay. Hopefully it's a little better now. Yes, David.
Yeah, I was going to say that a person could ask, why didn't Hashem do that in the beginning? Like, why did he create him so large and then make him small? Why didn't he just make him small at the outset? So I was thinking that Hashem is starting off by telling him, be humble. You think you're as great as the world because you're the only person, but it's just at the start. I'm showing you you are big, but now I'm making you small because your approach has to be humility. And that's why Hashem let Adam know and let us know through the Medrash.
Okay, it's an interesting thought. So it ends off here that wherever he didn't throw any of the flesh, that's where no one dwelled. That's where it never became a settlement. And then he brings a proof here. From here, you see that if a person gives birth to a illegitimate child, a mamzer, not only he's not fulfilling the mitzvah of having children, but he's preventing Mashiach. And which is an interesting outcome of this Kabbalistic idea. But something to do with the fact that, we need Adam to come back. We need all of his, we need everyone to be born in order to fulfill the initial way Adam was. And if a person has an illegitimate child, they're not actually helping bring Adam back to the size that Adam was, because illegitimate child is not part of this. In other words, it doesn't help it's not considered filling the world, because you don't fulfill the mitzvah of pru or vu with the illegitimate child. So that's how that's this statement. So anyway, this is connected to our Gemara, because our Gemara is saying that Adam decreed on wherever any place that was going to be a settlement, and it's connected. It's very interesting that it's connected. According to this Sefer Hasidim, it's connected to that idea that Adam was big and was small, and then he was the flesh, the extra flesh that was his. It's actually was thrown to all the different settlements, and that's the mitzvah of Pru Urvu, that when we have a child, we're actually fulfilling the appeasement of Hashem to Adam, that the world will be filled with people, and that will be the way you were originally, that you filled the whole world. And that is one of the, in addition to the regular mitzvah of having children, of course, that's another reason to have children, is that it brings Mashiach. The more children that are born, so Mashiach can't come until all the children are come out of the storage from heaven. So that's the additional mitzvah benefit of fulfilling the mitzvah of having children. Now, the Ritva, there's one final insight. So that's two insights that I shared with you on this Gemara. The third one is from a commentary called the Ritva, and he says that why did Adam live so long? It was because he needed to go from one end of the world to the other end of the world to decide where the settlements will be. So he had to travel the whole world. So I don't know if anyone's into calculations of travel time, but it took, Adam lived 930 years, and somehow he was able to cover the entire universe of wherever people settled, that he chose. These are places where these are places where it should be settled. Now, we also don't know how tall he was, because taller a person is, the easier it is for them to travel long distances. And especially according to this, the other view that we mentioned, that is mentioned in the Talmud, that he fit the entire world, it would be no big deal. So the Ritva continues. He says, for sure, according to the Medrash, that says that from the beginning, before the sin, he filled the entire world. So according to that, it's no big deal for him to decide what places will be developed and settled and what places won't. But even after he was shortened, it could be that he was still huge, and therefore he was able to walk across and maybe large areas in a very short amount of time. Yes, Susan.
Is there any other reference to someone else living that many years along that? I mean, an absorbed a long life.
930 years.
Yes.
So,
is there any other?
If you look in the Chumash, basically the lifespan of mankind until Abraham was much larger than much longer than it is now, especially until Noah. In Mesushalaf, 969 years. There were people who lived long, very long, up to 1,000 years. And then the lifespan of humans got shortened.
After the flood?
And after the flood, for sure, after the flood.
Changed.
After the flood, and even then when Adam was born, it got even less. So we are going back to the Gemara. We also mentioned the next little piece. The next little piece of Gemara mentioned that Reb Mordechai escorted Rav Shimi Barashi from Hagronia into Beikipi, or into Beidura. And the question is, why does it mention this statement here? It doesn't tell us that they ended off their conversation with a word of Torah. And you would think that that is what the purpose of this whole Gemara is, that we're saying, just like you start davening with a word of Torah, like Ashrei. So the same thing is when you conclude a conversation, you should end off with a word of Torah. And here it just says he escorted him, but doesn't say that he had a word of Torah. So the interesting thing is this is also brought in another Gemara. The other Gemara tells us about how far does a person have to escort their teacher, their friend, How far do you have to escort? It's a mitzvah to escort someone when they're leaving. And that Gemara, this actually fits very well because it's mentioning how far Rav Mordechai escorted Rav Shimi Barashi. How far did he go? It says from Hagrunya to Beit Kipi. Now, personally, we don't know how far that is. At least I don't know, or to Beit Dura. But in the time of the Gemara, they knew that that was a certain distance, and that made that was it gave an understanding of how far a person should escort their Rebbe, and that would be the purpose. But the thing is, in our Gemara, it's really talking about concluding a conversation with a word of Torah. So why is it bringing this story? So the Meiri, one of the commentaries on the Gemara, says this is teaching us that if you don't have a word of Torah to end off, you're still allowed to say goodbye and end. That it's not if it works out that you have a word of Torah, great. But if you don't have a word of Torah, it's not like you sinned. You know, if you didn't end off on a word of Torah, but it doesn't tell us they didn't end off on a word of Torah, because that would sound negative, like, oh, they didn't have a word of Torah, so it doesn't say anything. But what it's hinting to us is that they didn't have a word of Torah that they ended off on, or and therefore they but therefore the Gemara brings it to hint to us that you say goodbye without a word of Torah, it's also okay. Now we're going to start the next Gemara, Tanu Rabbanan. We are 15 lines up from the bottom of the page. Tanu Rabbanan, the rabbis learned in a brisa or Tosefta. Hamespalel, person who davens, tzarich sheyechaven es liboy lashamayim. He has to have kavana. He has to direct concentrate his heart to heaven. Abba Shol Omer, and Abba Shol says, Simin ladavar, a sign for this is tachin libam takshiv aznecha. A sign for this is prepare your heart and they prepare their heart, takshiv aznecha, you will listen with your ears. God will listen. So in other words, if people prepare their heart for prayer, God will listen. Takshiv aznecha, your ears will hear, will listen. And so that is a siman, a sign for this statement of the rabbis in this Tosefta, that if a person, before a person prays, or when a person prays, he should be mechaven his heart to heaven. He should think about Hashem. Now, what exactly is this referring to? So there's two explanations over here, that a person should direct his thought, his heart, to Hashem. It's either understanding the words that he's saying, or it means think about Hashem before you. Now, if it's explaining the words, in other words, understanding the words that you're saying, so that's why it doesn't exactly, the proof is not a perfect proof, because the proof we're calling a siman. It's just, it sounds connected, but it's not a perfect proof, because the Tosefta is saying you should concentrate on the words you're saying to Hashem, and the proof is concentrate your heart, that your heart should be directed towards Hashem, but not the words. So therefore, it calls it a siman ladavar. Calls it, it sort of hints to the idea of concentration, but it's not an exact proof. That's one of the ways of learning this. The other way of learning it is that that really it's telling you it's all about your heart, directing your heart to Hashem, and that's the verse. And the reason why it's not a proof is because it doesn't tell you you have to do it that way. It's saying if you do it that way, it'll be listened to. So because of that, it doesn't use it as a proof. It doesn't say it's a proof, the verse in Tehillim. It just says siman ladavar, it's a sign, because it's not an exact proof that you have to be mechaven libay lashamayim, concentrate your heart to heaven, but rather it would be worthwhile because your prayer will be answered. Now, Tanya, we learned in a brisa, Amar Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda says, Rabbi Akiva. This is the custom of Rabbi Akiva. When he davened with the congregation, he would finish his prayer and then go up. Finish, in other words, go up, meaning go out of his Shemona Esrei. Finish his Shemona Esrei. He would do it shorter. When he davened with a congregation, he didn't daven as long. And what that means is that he used to normally add on a lot of extra stuff in his prayer. And when he davened with a congregation, he didn't want to burden the congregation to wait for him. So therefore, he would leave out some of his extra prayers that he normally added. In the Gemara says the reason, because of a burden on the congregation. But when he davened between himself and on his own, person would leave him in one corner, and he would find him in another corner. That means he would daven with such length and such intensity that he didn't even realize that he was moving. Every time he would bow to the ground and then get up and move around, and ended up that he would end up in another corner. But kol kach lama, why was this? Because of his bowing and bending the knee and bowing. That's why he ended up in another corner. And what that means is that there are, even though normally you're not supposed to add to the bowings of the Shemona Esrei, that is referring to bowing at the end of the making sure to bow at the end of the paragraphs of the Shemona Esrei. But if you want to add in the middle of the paragraphs a bow, you are allowed. And that's a Tosfos over here deals with this issue, that how is it possible that he bowed so many extra times when it says that we teach someone not to bow at the end of the Brochos. So he says that we're talking that, so Tosfos over here says that it gives one answer, that it's talking about that after he finished the Shemona Esrei, when he added on at the end, there's that extra paragraph at the end of the Shemona Esrei, that's when he bowed. But Tosfos is not satisfied with that answer, because it does say that he was doing the 18 brachas, and it implies that he was doing his 18 brachas. He was doing the Shemona Esrei, Shoyim Maspalo. So therefore, they explain that it means in the middle of a bracha you're allowed to bow, and that's what it's talking about. That he would bow, and all the many extra times he would bow in his Shemona Esrei. I don't advise anyone to do this in shul. The whole place will be talking about this person bowing on the floor, bending on, standing, stretching themselves all out on the floor and bowing to Hashem. But this is the way Rabbi Akiva used to daven in his house, and he ended up, it would be a much longer davening. So that's the story of Rabbi Akiva. Now, Amar Reb Chia, the next Gemara, by the two dots, we are 2 lines before the wide lines. Amar Reb Chia bar Abba, lo ila mispal adam b'bayis yesh bei chalonos. Person should daven in a house that has windows. And the truth is, this Gemara is really later on. It's questionable if it's supposed to be here, because if you look later on Lamed Dalet on page 34, the Gemara mentions it there, and Rashi explains it on that page. So it sounds like Rashi did not have it over here, because that's why Rashi's explanation is later on. But it says over there that he would daven in a place that has windows, because it allows you to have more kavana, because you look towards heaven and your heart becomes humbled, and you submit to Hashem. So that's the reason, according to Rashi, why a person should have a window near his davening, because he will think about Hashem. So it's a continuation, really, of this Gemara about thinking about that you're Hashem. So Rav Chia bar Abba says a person should daven in a house that has windows, as it says, v'chavan psichon lei.
Rabbi,
Yes.
I wonder why they say specifically that if you're in a home without windows, it's not, your davening is not going to be accepted. Is that what they're saying?
I think you should wait till we get to the
All right,
conclusion
sorry.
of this.
Okay.
So we're just starting this law. So it says that a person should daven in a house that has windows, and it gives a verse into Daniel. The verse says, "V'chavein pesichon lei," and he would make sure to have the openings. He would when he davened, and it's actually Aramaic. Daniel, the book of Daniel is like half Aramaic, and but I believe that's the translation. V'chavein pesichon lei, that he concentrated. But how does the art scroll? Does any of you have the art scroll? How does it translate that verse? V'chavein, he concentrated that the openings would be next to him. Anyone have the art scroll over there? No. Okay, no one has it. Okay, that's okay. It's a verse in Daniel.
I have the Koran.
Oh, the Koran. Okay, what is the Koran? How does it translate?
So it says, one should always pray in a house with windows, as is stated regarding Daniel. And the pasuk is, and when Daniel knew that the writing was signed, he went to his house. In his attic, there, and this is the words that are in the Gemara, there were open windows. And then it says, facing you, Jerusalem. And three times a day he knelt upon his knees and prayed.
Fine.
Yeah, so there were open windows.
Means there were open windows, but it doesn't translate the word l'chavein. It doesn't have another bold word.
No, it just says there were open windows.
Open windows. So he made sure to daven where there were open windows. He was mechaven. He directed himself towards the or near the open windows. So this is a story of Daniel where Daniel was prohibited from praying, and because the Daniel had a lot of people jealous of him in the government. Daniel was the highest official and very well respected. The people in the government, all the goyim, were jealous. So they made up they tried to make some type of a libel against him, and so they told the king that no one should ever be allowed to pray to anyone but you. So the king agreed to it, and he signed this decree that no one's allowed to pray to anyone else. And Daniel, he davened. Of course, he didn't stop davening. He davened to Hashem. So they caught him. So they said, "Look, you're going to have to be thrown into the lion's den." So Darius, who was the king of Media, he didn't know what to do because he made this decree and now he got stuck. So he was like he was beyond himself, but he had no choice because they got him. So they had to throw Daniel into the lion's den. So they threw Daniel into the lion's den. In the meantime, the next morning, the Darius came down in his pajamas to see if Daniel might miraculously still be alive. He was so broken that Daniel, that he almost killed Daniel, and Daniel was the highest officer, but he had no choice because he had the words of the king can't go in vain, and they sort of got him to do this. And anyway, so that's the story of Daniel was Meiser Nefesh to daven in public, so to speak, and even though it was against the rule, so punishable by being thrown into the lion's den. So the Gemara says that person should daven in a place that has windows.
Rabbi?
Yes.
Was Daniel a prophet too?
Of course.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So his job was one thing, but he was also a prophet.
Yeah. Of course. Yeah. No. Now, one of the commentaries explains that the reason for windows is different than I just explained. I just explained Rashi's explanation, that it allows a person to think about Hashem, and because a person will see the sky, and will remind him of Hashem. Talmidei Rabbeinu Yoina, well, the other commentary explains that the reason is because there'll be more light in the shul, and it'll make a person more comfortable and be able to concentrate better. And another explanation is that if the windows should be towards Jerusalem, so that he'll be able to think about Jerusalem better, and his prayer will be more accepted. So that is the different opinions, different explanations of the reason for this. So the Gemara continues, and it says, I would think that a person should daven all day. And the Gemara says, so you might think that a person should daven all day. It says in that really it's 3 times a day. The amount of time a person, the amount of prayers are really 3. Maybe it only started when Daniel came into Golus, when he came into exile. In other words, he was taken by Nebuchadnezzar into Babylon, and he stayed there throughout the 70, throughout the years of Babylon, the exile. And maybe that's when he started davening in Bavel, only when he was in exile. And maybe that's when the obligation of prayer began. And maybe he didn't used to daven before that. Maybe people, so Kvar Nemar, but it says, Dihu Abad min Kadmas Tana, that he used to do from before. So, which means that he used to daven the 3 prayers even before they went to exile. So maybe a person should daven any direction. And so Talmud Laimar Neged Yushalayim says opposite Jerusalem. I would think that maybe he should pray all 3 at one time. It's explained through King David that the person should pray in the evening, in the morning, and at noon. Maybe I would think a person should daven out loud. It's explained through Chana, the story of Chana, which we learned in the afternoon. The story of Chana, Shenemar, as it says, her voice was not heard. And from here, we see that a person should not daven out loud. The Shemona Esrei should be done quietly. And I mentioned that there's 2 opinions. The simple understanding is that you should be able to hear yourself say the words, but no one else should be able to hear you say the words. However, according to Kabbalah, person Shemona Esrei, they should say the words, but it should be a little softer. It should be less than they can hear. And the understanding is that that's like the highest level of humility before Hashem, that you don't even hear you don't even hear your words. You're so nullified. Maybe a person should ask for their needs, and afterwards say praises in other parts of the prayer. Maybe first you should ask for what you need. It's explained through King Solomon, Shenemar, as it says, L'shmoya el arina v'el atfila, that a person should listen to the rina, which means song, and tefillah, prayer. Rina zu tefillah. Rina refers to the prayer, meaning the song part of the prayer, and tefillah zu bakasha. Tefillah refers to the request part of the prayer. So Rina maybe not song, but praises, words of praises maybe. Words of praises should be first before bakasha, before the request. So again, we have a verse that says L'shmaya el arina v'al tefillah. We actually say this in the slichos before Rosh Hashanah and Kippur. So the slichos, there's a famous paragraph that says L'shmaya el arina v'al tefillah, to listen to the rina and tefillah. Rina, literally, it could mean praises or song. So what we see from the verse is that before you ask your request, you should put in your praises to Hashem, which is the way we do our davening, because the first three paragraphs are praises of Hashem. Hashem is the God of Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov. Hashem is the shield of Avraham. He does this, he does that. He all the praises. And then afterwards, we do our 13 blessings of request. Yes, Ezra.
Could you not take Rina as literally? Because when you say the words in a song form, then you might be considered as being Mifalel Besimcha.
And is that wrong or right?
That's right.
So in other words, maybe you're asking, maybe a person should sing for their,
you normally sing Ashrei Yoshev Betecha, Why do you do that?
Some congregations do more song than others, and Sephardic congregations probably do have some songs as well, where they sing. Yeah,
but I think that's the simcha.
Yeah. I would definitely think that's. It's funny. I was once in the mikveh and I was speaking. Someone was asking me about, what shul you daven at. So he was telling me, I go to a shul. We don't do any singing at all. It's straight davening, serious davening. So he was trying to show off, you're not allowed to sing. He was trying to imply, you're not really supposed to sing during davening. It's like, oh, really? Okay, that's a nice, interesting shul. I don't really, don't really know any source for following that. But, if you're very proud of it, okay, But definitely, I think that it would make sense that it's words of praise. If you're praising Hashem, that definitely would make sense to include song and it should be mitoch simcha shel mitzvah. These are words, definitely. The question, I guess, is how to fit in the kavod rosh, with the humility. Does that fit or not? And we had the different opinions, but no matter however you follow it, if it's a contradiction but even so, even if you hold that two different opinions, definitely it seems like we follow the simcha shel mitzvah part, and even according to the Bach, that said that it's an argument, but most people can't handle the kavod rosh, and therefore we follow that, the simcha. So definitely, it would seem like singing is definitely apropos. I don't want to start any new customs, but whatever is the custom until now, if this explains the custom, definitely, is a good source, I guess. So the Gemara continues, and it says that we learn from Chana about the person should not have their voice heard, and in other words, you shouldn't say it out loud. And then we said that you should first say the Rina, the words of praise, and then you do the requests, Tefillah Zubakasha. And then it says, Ein Omer Davar Achar Emes V'Yatziv. You're not supposed to add anything after Emes V'Yatziv, after, in other words, in the blessings of Shema, Aval Achar Tefillah, but after the Shemona Esrei, Afilu Kaseder Vidah Shel Yom Kippurim, even if you want to add such a long thing like the Vidoy of Yom Kippur, like a long what's it called, the Confessions of Yom Kippur, the 4 pages of confession. Even if you want to add that, you could do it there. So you're allowed to add stuff after the Shemona Esrei, but not before Shemona Esrei. So in other words, when you finish Emes V'Yatziv, before you say before you do the Shemona Esrei, in between you're not allowed to separate. So you shouldn't add anything there, but you're allowed to add stuff after the Achar Tefillah, even like Yom Kippur, the Seder davening of Yom Kippur. You could even add over there. And I'm just going to pull out a Shulchan Aruch. In chapter 119, the Shulchan Aruch mentions here that if a person wants to add,
isn't that why after, right before L'kai Netzor, even
that's what it seems like.
So
Yeah, 1 second. So it says at the end of chapter, in the end of the first paragraph of chapter 119, it says that at the end of the prayer, between whether before Yul Ratzon or afterwards, you could ask whether in a individual request or a Lashon Rabbim, a request for the general, for the congregation, whether your own personal needs or the needs of the community, that's when you can add requests. So it says either before Yil Ratzon or after, and it says in the Mishnah Brura that in chapter 122, so over here it mentions that you really shouldn't say before the Yil Ratzon, but rather you should say Yil Ratzon right away, and then you could say it again afterwards. So he says, really, according to the law, the letter of the law, you could really say it before Yil Ratzon. You could add a request. But l'chatchila, it's preferable to say it after the Yil Ratzon. So first you should say Yil Ratzon, and then you could add your requests. So again, in the Shemon Esrei itself, in Shemei Tefillah, there is an option to add requests. That same option you could even add before Yil Ratzon. At the end of Shemon Esrei as well, you could add requests. But really, it's preferable to add after Yil Ratzon. You could add requests if a person wanted to. I don't know if people do nowadays. It's not something that I'm aware of that people add. I believe many people think of their requests in their thought, but I don't know if people actually add much in words verbally. But according to the letter of the law, you could even add in the Shemon Esrei by the Shemei Tefillah blessing when you're asking Hashem to listen to your prayers, and you could add or after you finish the Hamavarech as Ama Yisrael Bashalom, even before Yil Ratzon. But it's preferable to say Yil Ratzon, and then afterwards, when you say Elokai Natsar, you could add other requests as well. Yes, Ben.
Yeah, I wanted to say about the prayer of Hannah that they mention here, that you should pray quietly. We learned that before without the prayer of Hannah. We learned it when they said Omdim Litpalel, you have to move your lips and pronounce the words, but quietly.
Yes,
so
we did.
Is that coming here to strengthen that issue?
That statement. So the Gemara earlier did mention that it mentioned over there about if a person says their prayer out loud, it's
Avodah Zarah.
Yeah, like it looks like they're a min. The question that they're a min, right? Where was that? Let's see. Yeah. Here it is on page Chaf Daled, page 24. Person's mashmiya koiloi betfilasoi. The person says their prayer out loud. The person's magvia koiloi betfilasoi. So the thing over there is, it would seem that that's telling us a problem with doing things that way. In other words, it would seem like the person doesn't believe in Hashem, as if Hashem doesn't hear him when he says it quietly. Here it's telling us that we see clearly from Chana that this is actually the appropriate way to daven. And here we're really talking more about general laws, so it adds this in as well about the importance of how a person
that's what I think they're adding.
We're mentioning it, but it's mentioning all the other laws as well, so it's mentioning that.
Yeah. Okay.
In other words, I don't know that it's really adding that much. It's really what is it adding? It really said that before in the previous chapter.
It's
But-
adding an
There must have
example.
been a problem with the noise level. That maybe that's what they're saying. That if you can't, if
Yeah.
you know,
That people, that it looks like you don't believe that Hashem can hear
Right,
you.
right.
That's the previous Gemara. Here it's mentioning that Hannah did this. She davened without, maybe it's saying a different reason, that it's more of a positive thing. In other words, the previous Gemara said it's like negative, don't do it otherwise. Don't make it loud. Here it's saying important to do it specifically, you should do it quietly. Like there's something positive. No, it's not just that it's not just that there is something wrong with doing it out loud. That's the previous Gemara. Here it's telling you that davka specifically you should do it quietly. Maybe it's because of humility and so on. Maybe it's emphasizing, because this chapter is all about humility. So maybe it's emphasizing that idea more like a positive thing to do it quietly. Just a thought. Yes, Avram. We can't hear you. You're muted.
Okay, to go back a bit, I personally, I do personal prayers before the official ending, Shemoneh Esrei, because I see the Shemoneh Esrei as like a ladder with rungs in it. And you go up and up and up and up, and the most receptive time would be towards on the last rung, as it were, before Hashem. I found that very effective. They're not necessarily selfish prayers or whatever to put word, but big prayers or whatever, or so maybe you help or thank you. But I found the understand the Shemoneh Esrei much better when I think of it as a ladder. 18 rungs.
Right. That's that's great. It's 100% allowed. It's if if you're accustomed to doing it that way, and you add stuff there, that's it's good. That's great. That's interesting thought, that it actually, you feel like you're on the highest level to put in a request. That's wonderful. Yes, Ezra.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
It's an operational question. Okay. If you're Shaliach Tzibur, all right, and you're saying the Shemoneh Esrei for yourself, and you do it quietly. And the minhag of the shul is not to say, for example, the Hatati Aviti Pashati, but it is in Nusach Sfard as well as Nusach Edot HaMizrach. So where can you say it before you actually do the actual tefillah for as representative of the shul? Do you say it immediately after the completion of your quiet Amidah, or do you do it somewhere before the end of that? Where exactly would you put it?
So I guess it depends. If it's a shul that goes very slow, I guess, if you sort of like, you can, if you can say it fast and people won't like cause the people to get angry that you're taking too much of their time, and then if you could recite it in the same amount of time that they're doing their shortened version, you're doing your longer version, maybe that would be okay. I don't know. I'm not really sure if it's so appropriate. I would think that maybe you should skip it, because it's you sort of don't want to mix in another minhag, to the especially if you're the chazan. So one thought would be just don't do it. That would be one thought. The other thought is, if it would be allowed to do, it would only be, I think, would only be appropriate to do then if they would be able to, if time wise you're not really burdening the congregation, because again, it's not their minhag to do it. Now, if you're an individual in the back of the shul and you want to, if you're an individual and that's one thing. But if you're the chazan, I don't know. I'd have to look it up and see if it's okay. Now, I do know that the Art Scroll Siddur does have the vidui in it. So because of that, I think they have, even the Ashkenaz, I think it has the vidui in it. I have an Art Scroll. And I think the reason is because it's not against the Ashkenaz custom. So therefore, I think it's okay. Here, let's see. Ashkenaz. No. Okay.
It should, I
Maybe
know
it
what you're,
doesn't. I thought the Ashkenaz used to have the vidui in it.
I
Maybe
think
not.
I think the art school may, but I don't know exactly.
Let me see
I don't know.
mincha.
No, it wouldn't be Mincha. No, I remember it. All right.
I thought they used to print it there, and I thought there was maybe a custom that people who wanted to say it could. Nope. Okay, I guess not. Okay, so I would have to look up. The place to look it up would be. I'm sorry. What did you say? Your computer is a little messed up.
Talking about Oshamnu.
Yes, Oshamnu.
Oshamnu, Baganu, Gazalnu. That whole section before.
So I thought the Ashkenaz doesn't say it, but I thought the art scroll had it printed there because maybe you could say it or something, but I'm wrong.
Well,
I'm wrong.
the Rabbi, no, I have my wife's Ashkenaz Siddur. It's on page 119A. I don't know if all the Siddurim have it there. It has the
Oh, I'm
vidui.
missing. Oh, 119. No, 119A.
Yes.
And it has it.
And it says some congregations recite the vidui before Tachanun, and it's recited while standing, and it's omitted on days that the Tachanun is omitted.
So it does have it, but does it print it out, or it just says you could say it, but it doesn't have it printed? It has a paragraph of it, Oshamnu. It actually says the Oshamnu.
Can you see it?
I can't see it. No, I don't see it because the problem is it only picks up a picture of a person in your screen. Your screen only picks up. Oh, if you put your face in front of it, maybe, yeah, whatever. We can't see it, but in any event, because you have the background on the screen, so it doesn't show it.
Okay.
You have that. You have the bridge in the background, so it doesn't pick up anything. Only a face. Yeah.
Right.
But,
so let me do
but
this.
it's okay. Yeah. So I guess I've seen other Siddurim that have it, maybe other art scrolls. In any event, the question would be if it's right, if it's appropriate. Oh, now we should be able to see it. It looks like it has it there. Right. Okay. In grayed out, it has the Oshamnu. Yes. So my thought is that even some Ashkenazic communities, or it's not against the Ashkenaz nusach. It's just not an obligation for everyone to say it. But some people might feel they want to say a vidui for any sin they did or something like that. They could. Because of that, it seems to me like it's not like doing another custom in a shul that doesn't have that custom. Therefore, if you're just davening there, to me it seemed like it's not a big deal if you want to say it. And but if you're davening for the Yomid, I would question if that's appropriate. I guess I could look. There's two books that I would look in. One would be the Piskei Tshuvos, which is a summary of many of the latest halachic questions, and the other one is Rabbi Ovadia Yosef. He has a compendium of almost every question that you can ask.
I thought when we discussed the for the Shaliach Tzibur, when he says his own quiet Amidah, could be said in his whatever his nusach is.
Right. But here you're in public, and you're even taking the time away from them to do your vidui, and you're banging your chest. I don't know. To me, it seems like it's could be problematic. Maybe not according to all opinions, but maybe there might be some opinions that it would be a question. So I don't know. I'm not saying it's a problem. I'm saying we should look it up. You know what I mean? That's all. Okay. So let's see. It's 11:04 already. Okay. So did we finish? Let's see. What did we get up to in Bollinger? Yeah. So we concluded at the Itmar Nami. No, let's do one more line. Itmar Nami, Amar Rav Chia Barashi. Rav Chia Barashi says the same thing. Amar Rav in the name of Rav. Even though they said person could ask their needs in the blessing of Shemat Tefillah, and person wants to say it afterwards. Even like the order of Yom Kippur, the vidui, the confessions that a person says, like Yom Kippur, he could say it then, and that is fine. That is definitely okay. So that is the Gemara all about our prayers and davening with a window, and davening 3 times a day, davening in evening, morning, and afternoon, and davening so quietly, and davening first with praises and then with prayer, and then person could add what they want after their Shemona Esrei. Okay, we're going to conclude here. We'll see you later, Mitzvah Hashem. Have a wonderful day. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you, Rabbi.